Hey there, and welcome to the Bold Badass Business Show. I'm Dr. Barnsley Brown, your badass business coach and host. And you all, I am thrilled today to have in the house from just outside Washington, D.C., which we might call a cesspool. I don't know what we want to call it right now, but right outside Washington, D.C., we have Melaine Privatera, who is the CEO of Mobius. Now, Mobius is an award-winning company, you all, that has won all sorts of awards from the Department of Defense, for example, and provides all sorts of strategic planning and technical and technological and cybersecurity and programmatic expertise. Melaine, I hope I'm describing this well enough, to the government. And you all, Melaine has been in this field as a woman, which of course it's a male dominated field, for how many years?
20
years. Oh my God. So when I first talked to her, you all, I have to tell you, I was just thrilled because she brings such an interesting story, background, and really didn't start out at all in this field. So first of all, Melaine, tell us, quickly about your story and how you got turned on to this of all things.
Oh man. Well, let's see. It's not every little girl's dream to be in missile defense. That was I wanted to be on Broadway. So, but life is mysterious like that. I started out. I went to school in Washington D.C. and I thought maybe I would go into some type of legislative role or politics. Maybe law school. And I was a political science major, history minor, and throughout I interned on the Hill. I worked for the Speaker of the House at the time. And at the end of the semester, we had to write a paper about our experience and what we had learned. And essentially, like, what I had learned is I never wanted to work in politics ever. So
and that's a great lesson to learn.
Yeah, I'm glad they made me write that paper because I didn't waste a lot more time on the Hill after that, just enough to get me to end my internship on a high note. And so after that, I was a senior and I graduated. I was applying to law school and I thought, okay, well, I'll get a job to help. I was going to take a year. I got a job working in a management consulting role. I was working with aerospace and defense companies and supporting government contracts. And I started to really enjoy it. I got really into the exciting technology that was going on within missile defense at the time. And I sort of found myself in this nexus of space and defense and as I was a freshman when 9/11 happened, and it was profoundly impactful for me. And so once I started doing something that really felt important, it became addictive. So that's where I started out.
I remember you telling me a bit about you being a freshman and that 9/11 really shifted everything for you.
It did because I didn't grow up in this country. I am American, and I was in California until I was 10, and I moved to Singapore, and I was in Singapore up until I was 17. And so when I came back to the U.S., I had like an enormous sense of pride in this country, and I think I romanticized the United States to a certain degree because I'd spent so much time away from it, and my exposure to the U.S. was like reading Sweet Valley High books and watching Seinfeld, watching Friends. And so I really wanted to like cleave back to my home country. And so, when 9/11 happened, I hadn't been back in the States that long, and it was just really profoundly impactful to me. And I think it really inspired me to do something with my life that I thought would be, could make a difference. And probably made me a little less selfish. I don't know. I was still a kid, but definitely inspired me to be in the field I'm in today.
I love it. And it really I mean, for most of us in this country, it was the first time we'd seen such a thing in our lifetime,
Right.
unless we had lived in another country at some point, it really, we're so unusual in the United States in that we don't live with that like some countries do every day, you know? And I love that you brought this growing up experience in Singapore and you were American. So you've got this really interesting kind of in between space that
Mhm.
you occupy that I think makes your perspective interesting.
Well, it's certainly been a challenge, more complicated, I think, to navigate. It was not a traditional upbringing, for sure, and it's strange to be a third culture kid when you sort of feel like an outsider,
Mm,
um, and you get really comfortable feeling like an outsider. And I think probably some of that emboldened me, like that uncomfortability emboldened me to continue in my field, to start an engineering company, not being an engineer, start a missile defense or a defense company, without having any military background. um, Being a woman in a male dominated industry, I was 27 when I started the company.
mm.
So, I did not have a lot of experience and I didn't have the resume that would suggest that I could found and navigate and lead a successful company. So, but I think, yeah, I think when you grow up feeling different or like an outsider, it forces you to just sit like right in the pocket of
Mm.
being a little uncomfortable. And makes you brave.
I love that. It makes you brave. It makes you brave. And it's like, well, I'm already on the margin. So what do I have to lose? You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah. Like, come
Everything's
on.
already weird and scary. I guess we'll just keep doing it. Yeah.
Well, I actually identify with you more than you could know that I was kind of a different kid. And yeah, and it makes it, I mean, at the time it's very uncomfortable and we get bullied and we get pushed around. But then when we move through and we find our voice,
Mhm.
we're so much more powerful because of that experience.
For sure. I mean, it teaches you very early on that I think the more that the small incremental wins, and you're like something that kind of proves to me like, yes, I can do this, or being able to take a step back in stride, like all of that sort of just like pays into your bank of like, I've got this.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I mean, it's been a beautiful experience to be able to
Okay. I got to interrupt you. I think you need to write a book called The Bank of You've Got This.
Oh man.
The bank of you've got this. I love that expression. That is an awesome expression because, most people don't have that kind of confidence. And, a lot of people would actually let the experience of being bullied, et cetera, they might let it make them timid and afraid.
I mean,
We
there's
can kind of
times when I've been timid and afraid too. I mean,
yeah.
I think being brave is being really afraid of something and doing it anyway.
Oh, I
You
love
know?
that. Oh my God. I got to write. Okay. Okay, I'm putting the gym up here. Sometimes I have to put stuff in the chat, Melaine, because that is just beautiful. Being brave is being afraid and still doing it.
Yeah, that's the definition of bravery. I mean, if you're not afraid and you do it, that you're not really being brave. You might be doing something great, but bravery is, I think, being really afraid and doing it anyway.
Beautiful. We just got a heart on that one for sure. Alyssa was like,
My
yes.
first part.
Those of you listening, hey, give us hearts and also, feel free to tear up the chat. We love to hear from you. What are you hearing that impresses you? Have you felt like an outsider in your life? Have you gone into a field where you were very different? And Melaine, I studied African American literature and women's studies. And when I was in academia, I was just bizarre for most people of every single color. They didn't know what to do with me, though anybody could teach Shakespeare. When it came to African American literature, it was ghettoized over here. And it was sad because in no way, shape, or form would that become part of the core curriculum that
Mhm.
was taught in that sort of way, because it was like, put them on a put this type of literature on a reservation, like we did the
Right.
Indians. You just take them over here and
You're
just
fringe on fringe, right? It's
yeah,
like,
here's a friend in a really shitty piece of land too, and just leave them there. They'll be okay. Oh my God. Something I love from what we talked about before this is you also said something that it just cracked me up, and it still does, that you are an equal opportunity hater.
that's right.
Tell us more about this.
I think you were asking me about my politics, right?
Well,
That
I
was where we
noticed
were
you
going with that.
said you stopped with the politics, like you were going to do it, and then you realized, oh my God, I can do something that's really going to save people's lives, and
Right.
help the country.
I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, the genesis of that conversation was, we were talking about the upcoming election that
Hmm.
has now happened.
Yep.
And yeah, I think I was talking along the lines of feeling like an outsider. And basically, like I'm an equal opportunity hater. I hated everybody. I thought both candidates were extremely problematic, and here we are. So
But I love it. I think that's interesting. It's such an interesting perspective, and it really almost in our culture is just who can we choose? Who is the lesser of the evils? Who's
right.
the lesser of the bad? Or the negative.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of moral equivalency going on, where I think we just need to get real about what we all collectively need in order to get along. And
Yes.
mhm.
Yeah, the divisions have to come down, and that's interesting because, sometimes as outsiders, I think we are better able to reach across. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely, right. And um, the I think that the once some of the hysteria hopefully calms down,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that, like, in general, people will be open to hearing different perspectives that aren't just regurgitating what we're told to say by one or the other side.
Yeah. And it's really, it's about the issues, not about the people, as I see it.
Correct.
It's about
I totally agree.
issues, not about people. And if we can just kind of separate, okay, it's okay that we may differ in the way we see the issues, but let's separate that out from people, you
Well,
know?
yeah, and I think there's, a whole lot of hand wringing that goes on about, um, trying to analyze something to death. And I think what we really need to talk about is just an outcome that we can all live with.
Yeah.
What is a win-win outcome that we all can kind of get behind and say, well, that kind of makes sense. Like I remember one of the most like ruinous relationship moments I had in my whole life was I was trying to pick a paint color when my husband and I were trying to pick a paint color for our kitchen. And I was saying one color and he was saying another. And it was a horrible debate. And so finally, we both were extremely frustrated. We went to Home Depot, and at the exact same time, we pointed at the same color.
Hmm.
So what he was calling brown, I was calling taupe or something. It was like so stupid. I can't even remember now, but but it was like, yeah, we were saying the same thing. We couldn't figure out a way to like communicate that. And we were talking all about the merits of color and what the color symbolized. It was nonsensical because we both wanted the same color in the end. And so I don't know. I think back to stupid things like that in my life. And I think that all of us would be better served if we just thought about an outcome that we could all live with, and just at least had that as the starting of our negotiation, and to stop trying to explain, the philosophy behind why we care about something so deeply. It's like, okay, but can we all live with this, type of economy? It's like, can we all agree that this probably makes sense in
Yeah.
general?
And without getting into all the moral ramifications,
Right.
what we think, what we believe, can we come up with a concrete outcome that
Right.
will work? I love that. And I have the feeling that you do a lot of this in your work, that you do a lot of negotiation. Is this true?
It's true. Yes, there is a lot of negotiation. I mean, as I said, Mobius, we provide services to the federal government across the board, right? But a lot of defense, a lot of intelligence, military applications. And I was recently at a multinational conference in Poland where we were discussing missile defense as it sits in for our NATO allies, partners. So there was, I think, 17, 18 different countries that were represented.
Mhm.
And, there's so many conflict regions right now where missile defense has become suddenly exciting again to talk about. For a while, it was sort of like, do we really need this? And I think what we're seeing is like, we do actually need it. And so what's fascinating is that, there's all kinds of negotiations that go on within my company between me and the U.S. government, and then with the U.S. government and our partners and allies and friends, right? So there's multi levels of where we have to kind of come together and talk about outcomes that we can live with.
So how do you think being an outsider and being a woman help you in these situations?
Well, I think having an outside perspective, I think you're naturally inclined to maybe just see something a little bit differently. And like I said, I've already been so afraid so many times and had to kind of be brave anyway that I think it emboldens you in a way, where if you're kind of used to being a little bit different, you're not as afraid to say something that might not be well received. I think, being a woman is what a ride, right? I mean, it's being a woman, especially in an age and time where there's a lot of attention on what it is to be a woman right now. And so I think so, in general, for me, I think that what I've seen is an increased sensitivity, and an increased openness to hear what a woman's perspective is. And I like it. I like where we're going. I think we have lots more to do, but I like where we're going.
Yeah, and I wonder, there's studies done about communication and women and, kind of how we interact, and we are very collaborative, extremely collaborative. And this is why I love having women in my Make It Happen mastermind, Melaine, because we need a team. We can't just be solopreneurs with a few contract employees. We just can't do it.
It's not fulfilling.
Yeah, it's not fulfilling. We need people to bounce things off. We need ideas. We need support. We need celebrations. We need somebody to kick our butt at times. I think we are scripted, socially scripted to some degree to be very relational. We're very relational. We want everyone to be in relationship. And also, I do think that we kind of have that too. But and you might call it, the absence of as much testosterone, but we have that desire for everyone to be included, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, I find the most satisfying professional experiences is when we're co-creating.
Yeah.
Right. And doing that in a healthy way. But I think you're always going to get a better product if you have a diverse set of opinions around the table that know how to work together.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most important things that women have, I think, are more naturally inclined to generalize would be to be able to separate out your ego from the collective objective, right?
Now, see, that's interesting because I was just seeing this visual of have that, and I was wondering, and I bet some of the listeners are too, have there been moments where you kind of had two guys just going head to head, no, and you had to kind of step in and be something of a peacemaker, again, the outsider perspective coming in to help?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I've also been someone who has been going head to head with somebody and needed to have a calming force kind of come in and to help me take the next incremental step. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't consider myself to be like one of the greatest peacemakers of all time, but I will say that I have one of the things that I've learned and practiced and continue to learn on a daily basis is knowing when to sit back and listen and
Mm,
really take in and listen, not to respond, but listen to just really understand, like, what is this person trying to say, especially if I don't agree with it.
mm,
Um, and to know at what point when when you need to make a decision, right? When if the team is just stuck versus when can you sit back and sort of let everybody kind of come together and get a collective win. Uh,
mm.
and then I can remember sometimes when I've just said like a very unpopular no. It's like, we're not doing that. We're not
Mm.
going to do that.
Without an explanation. No,
No,
just
yeah,
no.
we're just not going to do it. It's not going to work.
And there you go. And you said it with a smile, I'm sure.
100%, of course, because once the decision's made and there's no more, it's not persuasion time anymore. Now it's time to do what we're
Exactly. Oh
right.
my goodness. Yes, that's right. I'm thinking about the work of Dr. Carol Dweck, who is the renowned Stanford psychologist. She's the person who created the fixed mindset, growth mindset distinction. I know you've heard of this. And so I was thinking as you were talking, I think one of the big roles that you play is coming in and you don't have so much of a fixed mindset. You've had that experience of being bicultural and, even binational, if you will. And so you can come in and you can see it from several different angles, and you're not just, oh, there's just this one way.
Right.
Um, and I would think that that's really powerful in defense. And we definitely need that, because our hope, with defense is that we don't have to use it, right?
Right. It's, one of the most important things that defense can do for a country is it's deterrence, right?
Yeah,
It stops
exactly.
the fight, never gets out of the gate, right? And
Right.
that's the goal of we want to be so scary in what we could respond with that nobody wants to mess with us, right?
Yeah, it's like preventative health care,
Right. Exactly.
Seriously,
We're doing it.
have it be so ominous that nobody's gonna, oh, well, let's just back up. We don't
And
need to stay in this ring right now. Let's get out. So I think that's really interesting. So would you say, what are some of the moments in your career that because we like to keep it real on, Bold Badass Business, and just air the dirty laundry a little bit, share the stuff that ways we fell flat on our face. Oh my God. And then ways we've succeeded too. So what would be something that comes to mind where you think, oh my gosh, I was young, here's what happened, here's what I did, and here's what I learned. What's something you would share with the listeners that they could learn from?
Well, kind of along the lines of what we were talking about earlier. There have been times where, especially earlier on in my career, where I let a situation that was not working go on for way too long.
Mm,
Kind of like kicking the can, being like, let's let it play out. I really just want to like work with the team that I have, right? When maybe someone is clearly in the wrong role for them.
mm.
And trying to turn it around and trying to mitigate risk and letting it go too long. And I tell you what, I've never ended an employment relationship too early,
Mm.
but I have ended one way too late. And
Okay, now that's a gem right there.
way too late. And it, there, when I mean, I'm all for career development and, resourcing people, letting people fail in situ, right? But there are times when you get to a point where something really isn't working, and maybe somebody's just not suited for that role, or maybe what my needs have changed. There's a million different reasons why it might not be working, right? And you can autopsy that to death. But the point is that when you know that it's not working and you've tried mitigation, I have been guilty of hanging on for too long, and really, and I think wanting, like we talked about that peacemaker concept, but I think being afraid of the conflict. And I tell you what, honestly, the relief on both sides of that relationship is palpable when you finally sit down and say, like, this really isn't working, is it? Um, so I've been guilty of hanging on for too long in some
Hmm.
situations. Yeah, and I really want that to be a lesson learned and not a lesson experienced, because it is so uncomfortable to get to that point where you need to end something.
Yeah, and that's super powerful in business, whether it's the employee you've got, or it's also maybe a customer you have, and it's
100%.
just not working out, and it's stressing you out, and certainly it's stressing them out. And as you point out, when you get to that point and just really say, "Hey, this really isn't working out."
Working. Absolutely. And in my industry, when government contracting, our relationships with our industry partners are very important as well. So when you have a very important partner and you're working on a contract together and it is not going well, you've really got to address it early on, and be okay to say, like, hey, this isn't the deal. This deal isn't working, right? It's either got to be like a 360 win. The customer's happy, your partner's happy, your employees are happy, your team is happy, or it's not the right deal. And maybe you don't want to destroy the relationship over the wrong deal and risk what the right deal might be, where you could be wildly successful in the future, right? So it's getting on, being able to be uncomfortable and having those conversations about what's working and what's not. And I have that was one thing that's still a lesson I learn every day, is learning how to navigate that and letting go of something that might not be working and ending it before it becomes detrimental or destructive.
Yeah, a liability, right?
Yeah,
For sure.
for sure.
Hey, buddy, somebody's walking on my dog's street. He's unhappy. He's like,
No.
"Get off the street." Talk about defense right there.
It was snowing here today.
Oh, really? Wow. Wow. Gosh, well, it's a little chillier here than it has been, but it's no snow. Well, that you might have snow at Thanksgiving. What about that? It could be nice.
I could
Right?
romanticize that for sure.
Yeah, be by the fire, make some s'mores, put your feet up, have a glass of wine, do
Perfect.
nothing, get some spaghetti, whatever.
Puzzle. I always feel like that's like prime puzzle time. Yeah, let's do a puzzle.
Do a puzzle or play Jenga. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need that time. We need those times. So what is something that you're super proud of that you've created in your career? What's something that you're really proud of? This is the time to, bring it. No holding back.
I'm trying to think of like the times I'm most proud of are the times when we did something that we were told was impossible. So we talked a little bit about that, having that fixed image of something that, so when, everybody tells you that it's sort of this immovable thing, or it can't be done, or it's too hard. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom in listening to people who have tried and failed, but I want to know, like, how it failed, right? Because you want that information to be able to make an informed decision about whether you want to try or not, right? And we've had some technology wins that, we've been able to do things that are not supposed to be able to be done. And those things have provided critical support and I think brought critical capability to our overall defense posture. So those have been very exciting, very, very exciting, fulfilling things for me. And I really can't take credit for like any of the genius behind that. I viewed my role as just to simply support and resource the 500-pound brains to just get all of everything that they needed in order to go just be brilliant and bring a solution to bear that would really change the landscape of how we protect this country. And I think some of the other things that we've done, which I could talk more about, are So in government contracting, there are certain ways that you can make yourself more marketable. There's certain certifications that you can get for your business. Some of those are very challenging to obtain. Um, one of these things is called a hub zone certification, historically underutilized business zone certification. And essentially, you have to have 30% of your workforce be living in what's considered a designated hub zone. These are typically areas where that's the economy is struggling, underemployment is a problem, being underpaid is a problem, um, so in the beginning, we decided we wanted to get this hub zone certification because it provided us a lot of a competitive advantage. And so we set about to do it. We thought we were going to have an internship program and hire students from colleges that were located in hub zones. And while that was well within the regulation and it was all totally acceptable, I realized, number one, it was a huge managerial burden that my staff was like about to lose their minds over, which was number one. But number two, and I think more importantly, was what we were doing was technically correct, but it wasn't within the spirit of the Hub Zone program. We really weren't providing employment opportunities to adults that were struggling. We were providing career opportunities to college kids, and that there's a lot of nobility in that, and that's great. But that I have an internship program now that doesn't really service our hub zone, and I felt like I just got to be able to sleep at night. Like I got to have a program that I'm running that I think is within the spirit of what this program is trying to do. And so we went out and we had a totally different strategy. We contacted charities, local charities that were within hub zones in areas that we were operating or near where we were operating. And I think one of the most one of the proudest moments I've had in my career was we went to one of our charity partners is called the Manna House. It's a service organization. It's a food pantry in Huntsville, Alabama. And we went there to do an in-service day. And I took all the people who help run the Hub Zone program and my management team and some of our technical staff. And we went down there, and one of the guys who was a Mobius employee who's part of our Hub Zone program pulled me aside and started crying and said to me that, this opportunity had allowed him to move from one side of the line to the other at Manna House. And I think, I think it's really important for people who are benefiting from charities like this and nonprofits that they feel that they have an ability to contribute back. And so taking somebody from one side of the line and hiring them to directly support the charity that they are benefiting from, paying them to do it. A lot of these people previously didn't have bank accounts. Some of them don't even have IDs when we first identified them as potential employees. And so I think it's been just one of the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences is to have this Hub Zone program that, we just, and all we did really was we wanted to do it the right way. That was it. We just wanted to do the right thing. And I think that, that might sound simplistic, but sometimes when you lead with you just want to be doing the right thing, you can really do some magical things.
I love that. It's giving people such opportunities. And it's two things, right? The hub certification. I know I have that as a hysterically.
Since we've been driven to hysteria.
I have probably been driven to hysteria. We're back into the, 1800s, right? Where women were historically hysterical.
Right.
But I'm historically underutilized business. I'm a hub certified, but I'm not hub zone.
Okay.
So because I think they're a little different, right? You have to be
a little different.
Yeah.
But same vein.
But that's lovely, though. That's a wonderful way to change lives, and to bring in, since we started talking about being an outsider, to bring in people who were outsiders, who were on the other side of the line or the train tracks, the proverbial train tracks, and now they're having opportunity. and able to advance in something they love. I think that's amazing. And, you know, I heard something that you said earlier, Melaine, that I think is quite phenomenal too. And that is that you just wanted to bring in the 500-pound brains and give them everything they needed so they could create this, you know, the solutions. And that's really what being a business leader is, isn't it? Because,
Absolutely.
you know, just bringing together the best of the best and knowing we can't do it all. There's no way, nor do we have to. And if we tried to, it would be pretty disastrous.
100%. It's not about me.
Yeah.
I am, I am always the one that knows the least in every room, and I really wouldn't have it any other way. And especially when you're dealing with advanced technologies and space and cybersecurity and major weapon systems, things of that nature, there's so many brilliant minds that really need the freedom to operate in a way where they can just go and be brilliant. And they when we try to saddle, there's like this myth out there where if you're a really great engineer, then you should get employees to work underneath you. And then it's like you try to funnel them into like some kind of technical lead role, and then you have them write proposals. And it's like, we need to get real about what these people really want to do. And if they want to just go be like eccentric and brilliant, I think it's my job to make sure that they have the resources to go do that, and they have the mental freedom to do that, and that they have a really easy, benefits sign up, right? I mean, it's just the little things, but going to bat for these brilliant people and just letting them go do what they're born to do is something that's been like extremely fulfilling for me as a business owner.
And then you being able to come in and see a kind of have an overall vision, which is required while people are deeply engrossed in their technical field, right? Deeply
Right.
in whatever they're creating, their innovations or whatever they're working on, there's that need for somebody to come in and make sure everybody has what they have, but also to see a larger picture.
100%.
Yeah.
How are we positioned in the market? How can we make sure that they can continue to do the important work that they're doing? Who are our partners? We don't want to have any type of contract interruption. We don't need to make sure that our technical customers feel like we're doing everything to administer the contract properly. We have to be honest brokers with our negotiations. And I think also one of the things that has always been important to me is, so I've never taken any outside funding. So we're completely bootstrapped. So Mobius is almost 14 years old now, and MPS, which is our joint venture with our Mobius and Parsons, had formed a joint venture, MP Solutions, or MPS we call it, and that company has been in existence, 6-7 years maybe. But those having those partnerships and making sure that we're well positioned to be able to allow people to continue doing the great work that they do is very important.
I love that. And I love how you all created the joint venture partner, basically the MPS.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you realize really when you were running Mobius, because it's interesting, you started Mobius, as you said, like 14 years ago. And then how did you realize, oh, we really need this other wing too, this other company, really, MPS?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really was stemmed out of some of the work that we were doing. We already had an existing contractual relationship with Parsons. It was going really well. The Department of Defense actually recognized our relationship as being like an ideal mentor-protege relationship. And we were awarded a non-peri award from the DoD, which is essentially like recognition of partnership, right? Amazing. And so we thought we should maybe formalize that with a joint venture company. And what that allowed for Parsons to do was they could compete on contracts that were previously closed to them because Mobius was able to come as a woman-owned small business and a hub-zone business, and they were able to represent. We can represent MP Solutions as with those certifications, and so sometimes there's important work. So we had a ton of people doing very important work, and that contract, when it was being recompeted, went small business. And so we knew that we needed a competitive company where we could partner together and go after that work so that our people could keep doing what they were doing. And then obviously what it did for Mobius is we were able to take much larger swings. So at the time, I think Mobius was much smaller. So going after a $600 million contract was something that was, I think it would have been really hard to convince the government that we were a credible bidder. The other contracts we were administering were like $20-30 million, right? So to go from that to like 600 million is a huge jump. But when you have a $2 billion machine like Parsons behind you, I think that helps them take their risk. That's a risk mitigation,
right? Because you're borrowing the credibility essentially.
100%. And I mean, they own the company as well. I think it's 51-49 split. So they're incredibly invested in it as well. And so we have all of the machine behind this enormous, really beautifully well-run company. And then we had all the advantages of being a small, nimble, privately funded, privately owned, woman-owned business, right? So it was a huge win. So, but I mean, really, it was about, we were like, hey, we're getting recognized for how great this partnership is, and this is really working, and the government already likes what we're doing. And then it was like we had a clear business case. We had work that we wanted to go make sure that our best people could continue to do, and the contract was moving in a different direction. And that was the genesis of why we decided to go into a joint venture.
I just think it's so interesting, actually. And I didn't understand exactly what the relationship was. So I'm really glad we're discussing this. I didn't understand how it had come about. And I think for the listeners, it's just pretty fascinating that you could, have, as you put it, be a nimble small business and be hub certified and be hub zone certified, woman owned, et cetera. And you could ally with a partner, and you would still be 51% owner, right? Very important. And they're 49%, right? So you could still have access to the hub certification.
Yeah. And we're the managing member, right? So I think it's 5 of us that vote, 3 from Mobius, 2 from our partner. So we maintain operational and managerial control of the company.
That's wonderful. That's a really smart thing. And so what can we say to our small business owners? What would you like to say to them about, being aware of opportunities such as this? Because you said it really came out of winning that award from the Department of Defense. And then you said, well, this is working really well. They're liking it. How about we formalize it? But what would you say to the small business owners about seeing opportunities that may be huge that we're overlooking?
I think it's all about finding like an all-around win, right? So what's a win for you? What would be a huge win for your partner? What would be a huge win for your customer? And what's a huge win for your end user? Our end user is the warfighter and the intelligence apparatus, and the actual people who are on the front lines. So it had to be something where it was like this sort of 4-way win. It's got to be so winning, it's undeniable any way you slice it, right? And it's like nothing is without its challenges, of course, but there has to be a really strong business case for you, your partner, your customer, and your end user. I think it's undeniable, right? At that point.
I love that. I just popped that right up in the chat. So you find that win, you find the intersection of the win for all 4, and then you're really going to have a partnership that works.
100%. I mean, in my case, this allowed Mobius to continue the great work we were doing. It also provided us access to take much larger swings at work that we couldn't really do on our own. I think for Parsons, it gave them a competitive advantage that they were losing, and it allowed them to go after work that they wanted to maintain incumbency on.
Mm.
that was no longer available to them without partnering with a small business. I think for the government, they were able to get a great price for an exquisite product. And they were able to do that with, a relatively seamless transition,
Mm.
so that they had the same technical people that they, when they could award the contract to, it was the same people who had been doing great work for them previously. And then I think for the warfighter, obviously it's continuity of operations, and it can be painful when there's transitions. And so I think the continuity, especially in a high ops tempo environment, when you have operational systems and you have lots of things going on that, it's like the last thing the warfighter wants to be worrying about is who is my POC when they need instructions on how to engage. So
Yeah.
and so yeah, I mean, I think it was just sort of like this undeniable all around win for everybody. And when you can make a business case like that, you can really get people energized. And when you find something like that, I think too, it becomes larger than just the relationships that sort of like, I mean, obviously there's relationships here that we all kind of came together and made this agreement. But when you institutionalize it and you formalize it like that, and you really get a business case, and you got people bought in and on board, it becomes its own person outside of anything else that is happening. It becomes its own entity. And then it has like the life of its own. And that has staying power.
Yeah.
And that can outlast the inevitable changes that might come to certain, people move on, things change, situations change. But when you have that entity that's like its own living thing that you want to protect and you really believe in, it can sustain you through times that might not be as certain.
And the partnership becomes a new brand,
Absolutely.
It becomes a new brand. So you've got Mobius Parsons Solutions and you've got Mobius, right? And it becomes this new personality, if you will. I've been talking recently, we're so on the same wavelength about how our businesses have a personality.
Definitely.
And really, what kind of personality do you want your business to have? Is your business a curmudgeon? What is the personality of your business? And getting and understanding that, and I love that you've brought together these two, the small business and the large company, and created this new hybrid. Really, it's a hybrid.
Yeah, a beautiful blend. It's kind of taken on a life of its own. And I love that. I think we should think about our businesses like we talk about core values and stuff like that, but really we're human beings, right? And so when it comes down to it, it's like we want to know, like, well, what's the vibe, right? Like what are we doing here?
Is it badass? Is it fun? Is it in your face? Is it real? Or is it, stick up your butt,
For sure. And it's like, if you're a bank, maybe I do want you to be a little more stick up your butt. I don't know. It
depends, right? A little more analytical, perhaps.
There's times when you want somebody who's like a stickler for the details, right? And I think for Mobius, like, especially as we became sort of sophomoric in our, once we had over 200 employees, and once we had some larger contracts, some of the younger version of Mobius or previous version of Mobius, we were like, we can be really flexible. We can be really nimble. We have a really flat, authorities, chain of command, right? If you need a decision made, like you can get one really quickly. It doesn't have to go through like 58 lawyers. It goes through like me and like maybe one lawyer, but depending on what it is. But but having this joint venture with this very large company, and seeing the formality in which they operated, I think we learned a lot from that. And I think we grew up a little bit. And I think they might have appreciated that we could do some things a little quicker than them sometimes,
right? Because there were less, say, set in stone systems. Perhaps there was a little leeway, right? And there were less levels involved. And I'm sure that seeing how they, how everything was systematized, was really helpful to.
It was definitely.
Whoa, I love the idea of growing up your business, you know. And I think the same when you work with a coach, right? Here as a coach, I've got to say, when we work with coaches, and I work with coaches, I'm a coach, but of course I have coaches. It's because I want to benefit from what they've created that's
Mhm.
going to help my infrastructure, you know. And so many entrepreneurs just come in, and it's, you know, it's kind of, it's just like, hello, here I am. Let's start a business. You know, I mean, really, I'm being ridiculous, but
No, but I mean,
you know what
but
I mean.
it's a trap. It can be, so that energy, all that the excitement of being a grow, start a startup or a grower feeder, right? Like that's going to propel you through a lot, right? And you're gonna need that for when you got to dig deep and have some grit. But also, we can't just we can't just be silly, about it. We have
Ooh.
yeah, it's
No,
all
we have
the
to have,
enthusiasm in the world is not going to help you run a successful business if you don't have some people that are giving you some guiding light advice.
absolutely. And if you're not following systems, if you're not tracking, if you don't have everything, if you don't have your operations manual, your systems manual, whatever you prefer to call it, and you don't understand what your revenue generating activities are, this is the thing. What are your revenue generating activities? Those of you listening, what are they? I am amazed at how many people don't get it. And you know, really,
Yeah.
and for you, it's so interesting to have you on the show, Melaine, because you know, for you, it's like finding those opportunities that are the 600 million ones. Like, let's go after this one right over here. Oh, look at this. Let's apply for this, or a contract. Let's do a proposal, right?
Yeah.
So you're vetting these. And for the small business owner, you know, who may be solopreneur with just a few employees or just with contract employees, you know, it's about understanding, well, what is it that will take me to revenue the fastest, especially if you want to become sustainable. You've got to know that. You've got to understand it. And they're the short term strategies and the long term strategies. But you need to do the short term when you're starting out, or you're not going to be in business, you know. So
And understanding your margins. I mean, if you have
yeah,
a couple different service offerings, right, and understanding where your margins are, because there might be work that you really want to go do, and then there might be work that makes you money. And
exactly.
what does that balance look like for you, right? And I think sometimes we can fall into the trap of when we take investors, um, and we use investors as a source of money. And I'm really glad, really, one of the things that I'm really, really glad is that I was able to identify what those revenue generators were for my company, and I didn't have to rely on outside investment. Because when you do that, it's fine, but that money, that's a different color of money.
It is patronage. Excuse my
Different color
French.
of money.
Is like patronage at some level. I mean, remember the patron system, you know, if you were an artist during the Renaissance,
Yeah.
somebody would be your patron, but they could also dictate, oh, what kind of projects you do and don't do, you
Mhm.
know? And yeah, it comes with, you know, I mean, understandably with some strings or some, you know,
It's
proclivities.
not free.
Yeah. It's
That's
not
not free
free.
money. That's not
Right.
free. That's not free
Exactly.
money, right? And I mean, for some businesses, it makes a lot of sense, right? For the scale of what they want to do, and
Yeah.
the path that they want to be on. I'm not saying it doesn't always make sense. I'm saying it's a different color of money than your revenue generating money, and you got to know what do you want your pie chart to look like? What color of money do you want to see most of on your pie chart?
I like that. And how does that impact your freedom to do the work you really want to do? All right. And there's always, I like the way you put it. There's the work you do that you're good at it. Maybe it's not your zone of genius, but it's your zone of excellence. You're good at it. You get well paid for it. There's that. And we do some of that so that we can do the stuff that's a little more out there, so to speak, that those little pet projects, so to speak.
Fund your R&D, right? I mean, and like developing a product that supports
Exactly.
things like that. But you gotta have money to do it.
Or for the small business owner, it can be writing their book that they've talked about forever. We've got a title for your book, remember?
I know I'm going to need some coaching
Got
expertise
this.
if I decide to take that on.
You've got this. Listen, I can totally see it. I can totally see it. Jamie Kern Lima, I don't know if you've read her book, Believe It. She has the second one now. I haven't read that one. But, she had It Cosmetics and she sold it
Okay.
to It. That's sort of funny. She sold it to, was it L'Oreal, I think, for millions,
Mm-hmm.
and um, she was like this beauty queen, right? Literally, she grew up being a beauty queen, and she
Right.
was also a little curvy and plus size. And she had people just say some horrible things to her, and she just overcame all of this, just
Mm-hmm.
pushed through all of it, really, and 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 became such a success. And now she has a book, Melaine, and she's doing lots of motivational speaking, and she has her show, and she has this, and she has that. You never know. You never know.
Much to discuss, much to ponder.
You
Yeah.
got the name for it. Can't y'all hear it? I can just at the Melaine Primatera show. I mean Privitera.
Oh my
I can
gosh.
already hear it. And I think, it's interesting because we get to points in our business. I know I'm at one now in my business where there's certain things that I can just do. You could duct tape my mouth shut and I could still do it. But, and I'm being funny, obviously. Don't duct tape my mouth shut. No,
That's funny.
don't do that. Please
Yeah.
don't. But I could still do it. But there's certain things that are really calling to me,
Mm.
and like you say, it's the equivalent of R&D, really, because
Yeah.
it seems like another children's book, a children's book. It's stuff that is not really monetized.
Right.
And so
Right.
that is, again, I think it's just really interesting what you did in connecting the large company and the small company and small business and the large company, because that assists certainly with that process as well. Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I would like to do in my epic chapter 2 that we're writing together right now.
Yes, the epic
Um,
chapter. Here we go. Except
is,
it's not going to be one chapter. It's going to be a whole book. Maybe it'll be a
exactly.
series.
It's the new saga. But one of the things I'd love to do is take the experience that I had with having a fantastic mentor company and actually find a protege that's small, like
Mm,
Mobius was, and
mm.
form a JV with another small company and kind of pass along all of the blessings and knowledge that we've
Wow.
gotten, and to kind of like pay it forward or pay it back. But I think that would be like a really great next chapter.
And that would be a great book. While you do it, or reality TV show, while you do it, well, here's the thing: you do the reality TV show, Melaine, right? And then you get it transcribed and you turn it into the book.
Well, I have a feeling that my 3 ridiculous children would become instant stars of whatever reality show that was supposed to be about business. They would be instantly more
Running behind you.
relatable, famous, more likable. Yeah.
Well, listen, these are the things that I always say, to my daughter, hey, look, your mom's just a little different. And hey, aren't you glad? And she tries it's funny, her little friends will say, well, do you write books? And what is it that you do? They're interested, but they don't get it. But that's okay. And I'm sure your kids are the same way. Well, my mom, she doesn't design the weapons, but she does
Yeah.
the.
My 13-year-old has got the elevator, and my 11-year-old actually has the elevator pitch.
Okay.
They've really been working on it. But but I have 3 kids and 2 of them have special needs, and the one in the middle is typically developing. And
Mm,
so I think that's just like another one of this life theme of being an outsider and maybe being a little bit different. And I have these 3 beautiful children that are all having, like, they're not really having a typical experience.
yeah.
And so, like, helping these little people navigate a world that's not really built for them and helping them be
Mm.
able to celebrate their differences. I think that's like definitely part of, that's got to be a chapter as well.
That's another book right
Book,
there.
in this saga.
And that might be the more important book.
Yeah.
That's where I think sometimes we have to really look at what is the deepest work we can do, and ask ourselves, what
So
is the
right.
deepest calling I have right now?
That's
Yeah.
so true and so right. I couldn't agree more.
Well, listen, Melaine, you have given us so much, and I know your business is, I know you're not going to gift everybody a missile tonight. And your business is a little different. You've gifted us with this wonderful interview. Now, is there anything else that you wanted to gift everybody that is maybe a white paper you have or anything like that? And if there isn't, no worries.
I don't have a specific gift, but I hope that what people take from this interview is what a great resource that you are,
Oh,
and the ways that you can tease out so many ideas and unlock. I think you're a wonderful person to co-create with. And I would just encourage everybody to reach out to you because I
oh,
know I've benefited so much from the times that we've chatted. And yeah, so my that would be my gift back.
oh. I'm going to cry. But that's wonderful. That's a huge compliment, and especially coming from you. And I do love to just pull out ideas and pull out those treasures that are inside of myself and others.
You have that gift, so I think
I love that.
yeah, you have that.
It's just because they're there. And
Yeah,
when you get in touch with that, it's like you've touched something sacred, And I
absolutely.
really do believe that is why we're here, is we're to touch that sacred ground, inside of us. And you did it when, here's like in the middle of disaster, 9/11, that was the thing that moved you forward to say, I want to do something that is a little more than just be in politics.
Definitely.
Yeah. I said, wasn't that a nice way to put that?
That was so
A little more
diplomatic.
than being in
Politics.
a little more than being in
Diplomatic.
politics. I actually have a safe place for my children to grow up, and I want to, create. I see what you do, Melaine, is actually creating peace. And I know that may sound strange to some, but I do see it as that way, because when we have strong defense, it does have that effect of, well, let me just back up and not keep trying to show my guns. It's kind of it can have that impact of, let's just not mess with this country. Let's not do that. Let's not go there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's America is an incredible country, and I think that the ideals that we have are worth protecting.
Yeah.
And I think that overall, anybody who wants to be a peace-loving, democratic nation should be a friend to the United States. And I'm very proud to play a very, very, very small role in making sure that light is still in the world today.
Well, on that note, I think we have to stop. And you all, the freebie vault, by the way, I didn't mention it, but you all know where it is. I'll just say it real quickly. Go get tons of gifts. They're all there. Melaine has gifted us with this incredible interview. Be sure to go back and listen to the whole thing. It's very thought-provoking. Some ideas I'm sure that in your small business you've never considered. And maybe your business isn't small and you've never considered these either. So go back and listen. The freebie vault is at bit.ly/free from Dr. B, and that's DRB. Let me repeat it, bit.ly/free from Dr. B, DRB. And you'll be able to go in there and get all sorts of goodies, and that will help you this weekend to become a better business owner, a better person, a better American, a better human being, a better galactic member of the cosmos.
Yes, all of the above.
All of the above. Just put an E, put E, A, B, C, D, and E, all of the above. You all, this has been an awesome time. Melaine, I've really appreciated you being here. What an incredible interview. And everybody, remember, right now, maybe you don't feel like a badass in business, but indeed you are, because you're here with us, or you're listening to this after the live. You're a badass, and keep going no matter what. Dr. Barnsley Brown and Melaine Privatera, soon to be author, signing off.